This is one of the most broken weapons that came out with the DLC, and it has to be one of the most broken weapons in the entire game. It deals massive bleed damage and it shreds bosses. Today we are building around the Bloodfiend to make it into an unstoppable monster. We'll cover how to get the necessary items and provide two builds. One that maximizes the damage upwards of 80% and one that makes the weapon easier to use. Let's get to it. The first build focuses on boosting the weapon to its best potential while maintaining ease of use. It is built around high poise and a tanky setup that will allow you to trade hits and push staggers and bleed more often. It is easy DPS and at times it is the best DPS. The second build cranks the damage to a 10x, providing optimal DPS while risking it a little bit more. This build offers upwards of 80% damage buffs that are easy to proc. It revolves around a lighter setup that offers very high damage output, enabling you to nuke bosses with a riskier playstyle. Before we get to the build, let's take a look at the start of the show, the Bloodfiend's Arm. The Bloodfiend's Arm is a colossal weapon with a slow moveset. It can be tricky to learn at first, but as soon as you get used to the tempo, it just shreds. It shines with its bleed procs and with its chunky charged attacks. And I mean chunky charged attacks. It can get upwards of 200 bleed buildup and its charged attacks deal stupid amounts of stance damage. With one of the builds, two fully charged heavy attacks bring Radon down to its knees and proc a bleed status effect. Probably the best bleed weapon in the game, period. Bloodfiend's Arm is a guaranteed single job from the Bloodfiend's group in Prospect Town. You can only get one per game cycle. Max it out to plus 25 and apply the Ash of 4 Craig Blade. Craig Blade buffs physical damage by 15% and stance damage by 10%, lasting for 60 seconds. I think you can see where we're going with this. It can be grabbed from the Scarab and kill it. Do not forget to change the affinity of the Bloodfiend to blood for a very high level of bleed buildup. First, the armor. Defeat the Black Gale Knight early in the DLC at the Western Nameless Mausoleum to get this powerful set. I know people get triggered by Black Gale. It just sounds better than Black Jail. Like, I don't get it. It just sounds better. Get over it. It has high defense and poise, allowing you to trade hits and not be interrupted. For the talismans, equip the Axe Talisman, which will increase your charge attacks by 10%, the Two-Handed Sword Talisman, which will increase your damage by two-handing the weapon by 15%, the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, which will raise your power by 20% when blood loss occurs, which will happen very often with this weapon, and finally the Bulgos Talisman, which will raise your poise by 33%, ensuring you can land hits consistently and go above that 100 poise. For your physic, use the Opaline Heart tier, which increases all damage negation types by 15%. For the second slot, use the Stone Barb Crack tier, which provides a 30% stance damage increase. This combination allows you to be tanky and pursue staggers at an early stage. For the Great Rune, you can use whatever you want, but Morgoth's Great Rune is really good for this build. Morgoth's Great Rune increases your health by 25%. It is perfect since it provides a big health boost, allowing you to tank more. Defeat Morgoth and activate it at the Divine Tower of East Altus. For the stats for this build, aim for 60 vigor to reach that magical number before you start having diminishing returns. 57 endurance is what you need so you can wear the armor, wield the weapon, and not fat roll. 40 strength to wield the Bloodfiend's Arm and increase damage. 60 to 70 arcane depending on your level to get that high stacks of bleed. First, the armor. Defeat the Rakshasa in the DLC at the Eastern Nameless Mausoleum to get this powerful set. This area can only be accessed by using the ladder in the Shadow Keep to get down to a special teleport coffin. Just follow the steps on the screen. Each armor piece boosts all damage by 2%. The trade-off is that the armor is less tanky than similar armors, but the overall 8% damage boost from the whole set is just very, very good. For the talismans, equip the Axe Talisman to increase charge attacks by 10%, the Two-Handed Sword Talisman to increase the weapon damage by 15% when two-handing, the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, which will raise your attack power by 20% when blood loss occurs, and finally, go for the Rotten Windsword Insignia, which will raise your attack power up to 13% with successive hits. For the physic, we are going aggressive. Use the Blood-Sucking Crack tier, which will raise your attack by 20% for 3 minutes, at the expense of losing your health. For the second slot, equip the Crimson Burst Crystal tier, which heals 7 HP per second for 3 minutes. This combination will offset the health loss, so it just works out. For the Great Rune again, use whatever you want, but Morgoth's Great Rune is really good. It will provide you with a big cushion for riskier play. For the stat distribution, aim for 60 vigor to manage the constant health loss. You don't need as much endurance with the second build. That is why 33 is the magic number to wear the armor, wield the weapon, and still medium roll. 50 strength to wield the Bloodfiend's arm and increase that damage. This build is about cranking the damage, therefore we're pushing that strength. And 70 arcane, and the focus here is to stack up high bleed damage as much as possible. We will also be adding Golden Vow to this setup to make it even better. The Ash of War can be obtained by defeating the mounted Godric Knight in Limgrave. Apply the Ash of War to the lightest dagger and put it in your second slot, and just activate it. Switch to your main weapon before boss fights. Now, let's break down how to use the builds effectively. First, consume a Rune Arc to boost your overall health, then use a Boiled Cramp for that 20% damage negation. Activate the Craig Blade, Ash of War, and Flask Up Blast before entering a boss fight. With the first build, pursue staggers with charged heavies. Spam that charged heavy with the 100 plus poise. You will land your attacks even if you are interrupted. 2 to 3 hits will proc bleed and or stagger, dealing massive damage that only gets better with higher Scatter-Tree fragments. If the boss is very fast and less forgiving, use your normal attacks and the charged ones in between. With the build number 2, add Golden Vow to the mix before a boss fight, land 2 light attacks at the beginning to proc Rotten Wing, and use your attacks wisely. Dodge hit small windows or charge your heavy with a good window of attack. With this build, just pay attention to your health and manage it while spamming the attacks, because you're taking down health and you're a little bit squishy, so just pay attention to your health bar and heal up if you have to. Even though the build is riskier, it ensures that you take down bosses quickly and efficiently. Actually, having both builds in your arsenal might not be a bad idea, so you can switch depending on the boss type. If you're going against Midra, you can do the risky build. If you're going against Radon, you can do the tanky build. It's perfect. And that is it for this boss shredding monster of a weapon in Elden Ring. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, sub, and if you want to see some other weapon reviewed, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Peace.